The following session will be in English. It is our honor to have Alex Bowen, PayMe COO, and Felix Wong, marketing lead from Cardup, to share how does the Fintech and the Martech is related. Let's welcome Alex and Felix.
Hello, it's me again. So I'm helping Alex and Felix to moderate the section. I prepared some questions to ask you guys so that maybe you guys can share a little bit more. Do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Gwen. Hello, everyone. Really great to be here. So I'm Alex. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for PayMe, which I'm sure hopefully everybody knows and uses and loves. And it's great to be at events like this, just connecting with people like Felix, Gwen, lots of you guys, entrepreneurs, I'm sure, and just looking really ahead into the future about how technology can really propel business and create new opportunities, new user experiences, and really help grow.
Is it working?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. This is Felix on behalf of Cardup. We are a fintech company where we help consumers and businesses make large transactions onto their credit card, particularly on payments that you cannot process on credit card in the past, such as paying your rents, paying the tuition for your kids, or even paying insurance and many other payments that you cannot process on credit cards. We do that because we can help you defer your payment, you don't have to get a loan, and at the same time, you earn all the rewards and eventually save from your payment. Previously, I spent almost 8 years in marketing in various industries, particularly in venture capital and early stage startups across Asia Pacific. So super excited to kickstart the conversation.
Sure, thank you. So I have a question both of Alex and Felix. So both Cardup and PayMe is quite young company. How does the journey been? Maybe Alex, you go first.
Sorry, Gwen, how does it?
How does journey of this young how develop, and do you want to share some highlights about how getting into the market and everything?
Got it. Yeah, of course. So I think PayMe is quite a unique product, certainly for HSBC. So HSBC and banking in general aren't really known for being great innovators. But certainly with PayMe, the bank decided to do something completely different, which was to create the company whilst housed within HSBC, but structure it almost outside. So it's an outside-in startup, if you like. So it really gave a license for creativity, for doing things differently, not being constrained by either history or legacy or standard practices, and it really kind of encouraged innovation. And certainly, as PayMe grew, there was lots of benefit of having that. And I think with a big organisation like HSBC as well, I'm sure with lots of big companies and banks especially, there's a lot of kind of either siloed management practices or business lines or functions, whereas PayMe was and still is very much a co-creation of different departments all under one roof. So whilst that might not be particularly mind-blowing for those who are in more agile companies, certainly for big banks, it made a real difference. So I think now we're kind of 4 years, almost 5 years down the line, and I think internally we are very different in terms of how we set ourselves up, because the product's become mature. I wouldn't kind of say it's really hit that maturity curve, but certainly we've got a responsibility to over 2.5 million customers now all around Hong Kong. So I think that kind of just brings a different lens to our innovation, and it presents different challenges, but also it really kind of helps us be even more innovative, because it's not just test, learn, deploy, iterate. We've really got to be thinking about, okay, what are we trying to do here? And certainly, from a marketing and Martech perspective, it's really trying to get that customer voice into everything that we do, which again I think is an exciting place to be.
That's great. And for us at Cardup, we are a Singaporean headquartered company 6 years ago. And we expanded to Hong Kong and Malaysia around the same time last year. So we're pretty new here. I'm from Hong Kong. I joined the company early this year to overseeing the region. I think a big background of the company is why we started is most of our founding members used to spend 10, 20 years working for American Express, and they realized there's a huge pain point in the market where over 92% of the payment are still conducted by bank transfer, check, or even cash. Imagine if you're making a payment on an Instagram shops, the store owner will still require you to do a deposit on one of the ATM machine. It's fine, it's still okay, but there's a lot of lack of operational time and rewards that you absolutely waste because of these transactions. So we realized this pain point and developed our software to help converting all your payment to make this possible. So you earn, you save, you make everything easier. And long story short, 6 years in the market, we are seeing more and more players coming to this game, which is great. More competitions, meaning that's more demand. And we're happy to really receive all these competitions because the payment landscape, the financial landscape is growing pretty fast. And we just want to be one of the biggest players right here. And speaking of the connection of Fintech, retail, and Martech, we are a team of 6 marketers. We are all proficient into most of the marketing technologies, and we basically leverage a lot of channels from social media, partnerships, content, search engine to grow our presence, at the same time acquiring our customers in different touch points. So happy to explore more in this topic.
Cool. So now I have a question for Felix. So as you mentioned, there's like when Cardup been to Hong Kong before, there's nothing like that. It's totally new. So it's enabled an other opportunity to people to can pay service or even rent or everything by credit card. So could you mind to share some insight about this? And do you think when you are trying to enter the market in Hong Kong, what are the challenges?
First of the challenge is we are not the only one. So which is great, we celebrate competition, and I think there's so many things we can learn from our competitors and eventually make the fintech and financial landscape better. So in Hong Kong, there's actually a company called Keychain Pay. I know HSBC is working pretty close with them, particularly doing the same mechanism, but really focused on paying rent. So we see the opportunities because rent is not the only payment where day-to-day consumers are making on a monthly or regular basis. You have to pay maybe ranging from 10,000 to 20,000, sometimes pretty normal. And if you make by cash, your landlord will be pretty happy you pay on time. But just imagine if you can convert this payment onto credit cards. You can basically max out all the miles, rewards, and cashback in just this payment. And you don't have to pay a lot of extra fee as well. So I think the other challenges we've been seeing is localization. So obviously, Singaporean company proficient in English, totally okay. But when we enter the market, we realize over 80% of our communication channels are competing in Cantonese. I'm from Hong Kong, I totally understand. I'm a social media advertiser, I'm a user as well. So when I see any advertisements, what makes the advertisement or marketing material stop me? It's really something where they can catch my eyes. But just imagine if there's a foreign language where you do not really familiar with, you basically reduce the chance of interacting with all these materials. So localization is really important. We localize our marketing materials, not just social media, but also everything from website support, in-apps, and we even need to localize our customer support. And we invest our budget to have a local customer service team in order to fulfill the need and also understanding what exactly our customer wants and eventually implementing all this into our channels. And I think that the last challenge for us is because the alternative payments landscape is also growing. So in Hong Kong, obviously, credit cards is one of the most popular payment gateways, but we're not the only one. There's a lot of options. Just imagine if you go to a restaurant or you buy stuff online, you can choose to pay by PayPal, you can choose to pay by Alipay, WeChat Pay, all these different payment wallets. So there's a lot of noise and distractions out there. And what makes us really standing out from the market is always making us more creative because we need to compete, we want to be part of it. And I think all these challenges are pretty healthy for us to help us move forward, and we're super ready with all the challenges.
Thanks, Felix. So now, Alex, similar to Cardup, PayMe is like a very new thing 4 years ago. Before PayMe, when we need to transfer money to our friend, we need to go to the ATM, even before FPS, right? So as PayMe is a sector from HSBC, like a very, very traditional, one of the most traditional industry in the world, how does it work? Like, how does you push it to run, and how, when you're doing the marketing, I'm sure it's a lot different from doing the traditional marketing of the bank. So can you share some with us?
Yeah, thanks, Gwen, very much so. So, I mean, just to kind of pick up on how it all started, it kind of all just started with a Post-it note, and on that Post-it note was written "Make payments easier." And I think the bank had got a really great team together at that point, and I'm not going to take any credit because I wasn't around back then. But they got a great team together to kind of try and innovate and find something that resonated and solved the pain point in Hong Kong, which has always been a very traditional, typical cash location. And I think it's great that it was created with the user experience at its very heart. And even whilst FPS is great today, I think still, because of the work that's been focused on that UX in terms of how it feels making that payment, I think that's really helped PayMe get a foot in the market. But yeah, it is different to HSBC, and I think certainly from a marketing perspective and a brand perspective, PayMe has its own look and feel. And I've been with HSBC for probably more years than I care to admit, and there is a very strong difference. And I think Felix, you phrased it really neatly about making sure that the content resonates locally. And look, that's not my strong suit. Okay, so I'm not going to try and comment on that. But when we talk about our campaigns, when we talk about our brands, it's very much through the eyes of what we see the demand is in Hong Kong. So there's a lot of customer experience research. We have small agile teams looking at what testing is done with campaigns, and we also feel that we can be a little bit edgy, a little bit different, and certainly things like putting PayMe and Kyungto on the Wong QRC building. That had not been even considered by HSBC as a bank before in terms of making its best use of its space, which is kind of quite surprising, really, when you've got a huge, effectively advertising screen. But that was sort of the first time. And what's also quite neat is that certainly if you look at the more recent advertising campaigns, PayMe has gone with certainly local key online influencers, Kyungto for one, and very quickly the HSBC cards team also used him. So I think imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery, but I think it's really it's nice to be working for a part of the bank that feels that it's got that edge, because that's what resonates with a lot of our user base.
Thanks. So next question, I think I have to go back to our Martech. So in terms of technology, how do you think that the technology influence when you're doing your marketing strategy? Maybe Felix, you first.
I think at the end of the day, technologies is a medium to make your work more agile. And sometimes all these machines behind technologies help you eliminate a lot of discrepancies. For example, in the past, if we do analytics, just like the examples from clicks before, you have to do a lot of copy and paste between spreadsheets. It causes a lot of human errors. But with technologies where you can automate this process, you no longer need to maybe hire an auntie to do all this data entry for you. You can basically just use all this automation software to do the process. So at Cardup, we are moving more and more towards this direction as well, because as the market's growing, more customers, more demand, and we are just a small team. Unlike large enterprise, we don't have the budget to expand our team immediately. So using the right technology, and especially in marketing, will be completely helpful. So maybe just to give a few examples. So we measure our in-app performance a lot. So we use tools like Amplitude to measure how people sign up and what they do next, and which steps does the process of creating a lot of frictions. Maybe when they create profiles, we are asking certain documents where they don't have next to them immediately. So we need to understand which process are stopping our users. So when we know how to improve our tooltips, how to improve our onboardings or maybe guidance in order to let our customers sign up as fast as possible. If we cannot, meaning that we are losing money, we are losing an opportunity to onboard our customers. So just to take a step back, can we do this as a human? Still okay, we can still collect data manually, we can still read traditional dashboards, but just imagine if you have 10,000 of customers in one go, you cannot avoid technology. So I think this is really important for us, and that's why having some budget allocated on marketing technologies would be really crucial, and I'm sure if you implement the technology in the right way, we will see the return.
Alex, how do you feel about the technology in the marketing segment in PayMe?
Yeah, so I think I recognise a lot of what you're saying there, Felix. I think there's probably a couple of things that I see we do really well, and I think something that Felix you mentioned is about trying to leverage the existing technology stack that you've got to just automate a lot of the manual processes that go behind. I think that's kind of become certainly a lot more commonplace, and we've got some great data visualization tools. I think Tableau is one of the ones that we use. But it is really around the data that I think it really kind of underpins a lot of the marketing strategies. And I think we're very lucky in terms we've got a richness of data, not just within PayMe, within HSBC, just in general. And we've got some fantastic data scientists that and programmers that work to help kind of bring this data to life. So then that can sort of guide and influence where we might want to focus. And the tools that we've already got, so we don't need to sort of create new solutions. We tend to sort of PI cycle by PI cycle, just tune and tweak what we want the output to be. So then we can start measuring what we want to measure and look at the effectiveness. But I think certainly there's a lot more that can be done in the data segment. And I think certainly banks probably aren't alone in having access to lots of data, but there's definitely lots more use cases out there than I think what exists in the market. But it's a very interesting area. You've kind of got ethical considerations on data. You've got privacy considerations on data. Yet you've also got the ability to put the right data in front of the right person at the right time to help them make a choice about something. So I think certainly this is probably just the start, and I think a lot of companies and industries are able to pivot to new things because of the stacks that they've built. So I'm quite excited to see what the next few years has in the data field. I think we've really only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, I think I agree with you very much, because everybody talk about Martech. People normally think about digital marketing, how to use social media. I think some of you, when you're doing your marketing campaign, you unavoidably you have to use your data to do the strategy and everything. So definitely later will be you have to use more and more data, big data and everything to plan your following marketing strategy. So in terms of fintech, you guys are both from fintech. Are there any like learnings when you grow and when you or compare yourself with your competitor? There's so many in the fintech area. So how do you think about this?
Yeah, so I think, as Felix you mentioned earlier, I think it's great to have competition because competition means that consumers, customers are going to get the best out of it. And as a customer myself, I'm grateful for not just the competition across the financial landscape, but of course in all the retail landscape as well. And I think certainly from a technology point of view, I think having that level of competition really forces innovation, and it also allows you to observe what works as well. Because sometimes it's great to be first to market, but also if it's first to market and doesn't quite work, or there could be an iteration that could be even better, I think it also allows you kind of to absorb what that looks like, and then essentially copy and redeploy, but in a slightly different way. And I think certainly from a PayMe perspective, we've worked with a number of third parties to kind of get the platform to where it is today. And I think that's been really exciting as well, because a lot of these third parties are typically a lot smaller companies, a lot more agile, have got very specific expertise that just banks don't have. And it's very hard to go out into the marketplace talent-wise and recruit something very, very specific. So I think partnering with actually companies that may be seen as offering something competitive to you is also a great part of being inside a fintech, because really what you're trying to do is get the best thing to the customer, the best user experience to enable them to do something. And if it takes 5 teams or 5 companies or 5 people to do that, if it's really the best thing, then I think it's a great decision to have.
Yeah, I think Hong Kong is definitely one of the most obvious hub where our governments as well as ourselves trying to position we are the best fintech hub. And I do agree at some point when we compare with foreign countries and cities. Although I came from a Singaporean headquarter company, when we compare our fintech landscape, there are certain points where Hong Kong is doing better than Singapore, such as number of virtual banks, such as our acceptance of what you can do with technologies by replicating the traditional financial process. So fintech is not just payment. You can also do buying your insurance. You can make investments. Now there's a lot of alternative investment products and payment products out there where you can also be beneficial from. And I think we are definitely moving into a better directions. And would be awesome to see more and more involvement from the institutional sectors, and also how governments and policy players try to make these markets more open. So a few examples could be like some fintech companies in Hong Kong and beyond, if they want to establish companies or maybe create certain disruptive technology, there's always a connections with the license or maybe legal procedures. So it's always something where you still need to consider, but also from an entrepreneur perspective, you have to improve your technology at the same time, and also create better options from your customer point of view. As we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of alternatives out there. Competition is crazy, and your customers just need to pick the right product for them, not just the cheapest, not just the easiest, but also something where you can really help to solve their problems.
Definitely. I think as well, if you don't have any disruption in a sector or a segment, it's just you don't see the same level of innovation, and the innovation will typically be a lot slower, and it will tend to be market-led, which if it's not something that's a real pain point or important, you won't see very much pace of growth. And yeah, I think it's very interesting, because I think a lot of countries, I've been lucky enough to live and work in a few, kind of see peaks and troughs. And I think definitely from an external perspective, Hong Kong very much seems to be really arriving on that peak. There's a lot of disruption in a lot of segments, and I think that's really forcing a lot of great innovation. And you only kind of have to look at even the space that we're in today. It's a designed innovation space, and there's I know of at least 3 or 4 more in Hong Kong that are purpose built for that. So I think it's a fantastic place to be, I think, for innovation at present.
Yeah, sometimes competition can be something very good, right? Because everybody pushing forward, we see that somebody's doing that, and then we want to leverage, I shouldn't say copy, leverage the good thing and then make our things better, right? So maybe let's see if any question from the audience, right? Are there any questions to Alex and Felix here?
Hi, Alex and Felix. I got a question for you two. So I suppose the two companies are in different stages of business, and I suppose PayMe is a bit more mature in terms of your customer base, and Cardup may be a bit newer in terms of, I think your objective will be more from new customer acquisition. So how do your two companies make use of marketing technology to achieve your respective business goals?
Okay, so maybe I can start with an example. So our customers ranging from individuals like you and me, where we have credit cards in our pockets. And we also work with small, medium companies like schools, tuition centers, or retailers where they need to pay rents, accepting fees, or even paying their staff. So I think over 80% of our marketing allocations are on the digital side and 20% on offline, like partnerships, working with banks and traditional media. So I will focus on the 80% because that's what most of the marketing technology effort spending on. So most of our campaigns and acquisitions came from social media, primarily focused on Facebook, Instagram, most recently on LinkedIn as well. Because that's where our customers hang out, and that's where our competitors are going into. But the thing is, because the competition is crazy, and most recently, Facebook also released a new policy where if you are within the credit sector, so obviously we are in the credit sectors indirectly, we have to declare we are selling certain products to our customers. So with the declarations, obviously there's an impact towards how much customers we can reach and the cost of acquiring customers. So the technologies behind all this mechanism is how we can aggregate all the data in one place and make faster decisions. I have to make this claim again by using data because we are operating in 3 regions, so Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaysia. And we have a common language, although we all use English, but there's also localized language where we need to consider. So in Hong Kong, there's Cantonese. In Malaysia, there's multiple languages as well. Singapore, we can do English only forever. But the thing is, when we create like content, when we generate images, when we create the funnel, just imagine we have to operate all this market in parallel. You cannot be coming up from one person or two. There's so many changes we have to iterate on a daily basis. So without the technology support, we cannot make this possible. So some of the technology we use, such as, although we in-house we have designers, but all the marketers in our team, we know how to do design. So we use Canva to basically build, test, and create all the marketing materials on our own, so we don't have to stretch out our design capacity. Second example is, we don't need to make any requests to our tech team to improve our websites, iterate or moderate anything based on our feedback. So all the marketers in our team know how to build websites. We know how to generate landing page, we know how to make changes, and we know how to integrate with other automatic automations where we need, such as email, copying data from one place to another, notifying ourselves, and all these are triggered by marketing team alone. So we use tools such as Unbounce to create a landing page quick. We can basically make changes in a few hours, If we make the request to a development team, maybe it takes a week or two. So we don't want to see this happen because the market is moving very fast and we have to make changes. We use a lot of CRM as well, so such as HubSpot. So basically, whenever we capture any opportunities on social media, we can automatically trigger notification and order assignment to our salesperson to know, hey, we got customers from maybe an international school. This is his or her request. Please make sure you personalize your onboarding and how to start our conversations. So you can see if we do all this process like by human, it might take time. It might generate a lot of errors, and we don't want to see this happen. So the other reasons why we need to use these technologies is because we really respect our office hours. So we follow most of the companies. We do 9 to 5, 9 to 6 sometimes. But we also operate our marketing campaign in non-office hours. Just imagine if our Facebook campaign are still active at like 9 in the evening or 10 in the morning on the weekend. No one's will follow up, but robots will. So that's why the technology is really important.
Yeah, so I think the social media point is an interesting one because I think in terms of disruption, social media has been disrupted, I think, by regulation at the minute, and it's quite interesting to kind of see how that will play out. And I think that can help you sometimes make conscious decisions, either to or not to pursue those lines. But I think specifically kind of from a technology point of view, in terms of marketing technology, I think very similar, and a lot of our marketeers are well skilled in the systems that we use for design and CX. So there's a lot of click measurements going on in terms of when we're about to either put something or build something within the app. And there's a lot of testing that happens in order to really refine that. So it kind of really starts with, do it with one click and work back rather than sort of build and then you kind of knit it together. So they are familiar with certainly at least some base level architecture within the product, which means that the marketing team, they know their limitations, they know what they can do, and they know what we can't do, because and I think that's how we can get things released in a really agile way. I think before the year's out, we're looking to expand the proposition to a younger age segment, and really that kind of concept started through research and use cases, and it was only 1.5 PI cycles ago, so about 12 weeks ago. And within that 12-week period, because we've got very clear CRM which shows, okay, there's some under-penetration in this and under-penetration in that, and we felt that actually, if we look at a younger demographic, then there's an opportunity to engage both that demographic and their parents as well, and those happen to be the segments that we're least penetrated in. So having really clear data to back those use cases is really good. But then, again, creating what that design looks like, what the limitations are going to be, it's not necessarily just a marketing play, and because of how we structure ourselves, it's not just passing the brief over to marketing and let them come back to something. They are intrinsically part of the Scrum teams that do the product design, that do the communication from start to finish. So that really helps them take advantage of our internal processes, and actually puts maybe slightly less reliance on a specific area of technology to deliver the campaign, because it's more just being part of that journey. So yeah, that's kind of, I know we've not got that much sexy technology, to be perfectly honest. It's a lot of things are as you would expect, but I think where it does get exciting is definitely in the how, and that co-creation and collaboration, both internally and externally. That I think is one of our strengths.
Okay, so I would love to stay here to talk to you guys more, but unfortunately, time's running out. So thanks again, Alex and Felix. I'm so honored to have you guys to share, because everybody wants to know fintech to Martech was related. It's actually definitely related. We can't just talking about using fintech like not using Martech, right? So thanks again, and I'll pass the mic to the MC again.
Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felix and Alex. It's really good sharing.